The iPhone release schedule never changes, but that doesn't mean it isn't a difficult aspect of any tech lover's yearly plans. When Apple reveals its next suite of phones in, usually, September of each year, it sparks off an internal discussion for me every time. Am I upgrading this year? For approximately 4 years, I was in the iPhone upgrade program, Apple's in-house subscription to the iPhone, which essentially sees you pay monthly to acquire the newest and greatest iPhone, with the option to cancel your loan when the new range comes out and upgrade. With every iPhone introduction, consumers are enthusiastic until they start to vent their discontent with Apple's modest hardware modifications. The fury is generally justifiable. Over the last few years, Apple has given us mostly altered variations of the same product. Nevertheless, these tiny changes do build up to major year-over-year advancements, but it's been a while since Apple has completely blown us away. This year's iPhone 17 range might follow the same approach. We're not anticipating breakthrough features like as a folding display or a portless design, but rumors hint to a number of nice tweaks throughout the range. Regardless of the model you're using right now, here are 10 primary reasons you will want to purchase an iPhone 17 this autumn. Apple is anticipated to launch the newest in iPhone design language with the 17 series. Some of it is supposedly on exhibit in advance in a fresh in the wild leak. It claimed to confirm the variations in look between the 16 Pro and its impending replacement. The iPhone 17 Pro is rumored to feature virtually the same camera hump as the 16 Pro, simply concealed under a new Pixel 9 Pro-esque bar that also contains sensors at the other side of the back panel. It is believed to be precision cut from a combination of metal and glass on the 17 Pro's back in a manner that necessitates a case with a broad window rather than a square cutout, like the one that looks to feature in a recent picture provided by the well-known leaker Majin Buu. The smartphone lacks elements like as an Apple logo in the recent leak, which puts its credibility as a true next-gen iPhone into doubt a bit. Nevertheless, it appears to reinforce past rumors that the 17 Pro would separate itself with more of a two-tone design. It also supports the concept that the back panel beneath the camera has a revised contour around the MagSafe coil, but whether it is merely cosmetic or otherwise remains uncertain at this moment. Over time, however, the fact that I never paid these phones off, instead leaping to the next one, made it seem like a losing game financially. So a couple of years ago, I completed paying off the iPhone 13 Pro, sold it and purchased an iPhone 15 Pro outright at release. Since then, I've been happy using my iPhone, and when the 16 Pro come along, I just didn't see enough of a cause to jump on it. Yes, the new camera control button looks great, but I essentially never used the action button introduced the year before and saw no reason to assume another button would be a different scenario. That means I'm sitting with a phone that's now 18 months old, while the iPhone 17 Pro continues to be the topic of lurid leaks, so will I upgrade? Well, it boils down to a few important areas that I need Apple to focus on. Everything surfacing surrounding the iPhone 17 Pro implies that we could be in for the largest design deviation that Apple has sanctioned in a long time for its phones. There are a handful of rumors, and they appear unanimous that the 17 Pro will wear a new camera bump that covers the entire of the breadth of its back, a bit like the Pixel lineup's visor, but substantially larger. Apple would be counting on the triangle arrangement of its real lenses to convey to spectators that this is an iPhone, and maybe that'll work. Still, I don't love the renders I've seen, and am a lot more smitten with the Google Pixel 9a, which finally minimizes its camera hump rather than expanding it. So, in short, although I'm all for design improvements, I'm praying without hope that the leaks are incorrect this time around, and that Apple opts for a more toned-down version of that large bar. The one redeeming grace would be if there were a much shorter increase overall, but I'm not sure how hopeful I feel on that front. I'm not particularly bashing Apple Intelligence here, even if its deployment was certainly slower than expected, and its execution hasn't exactly been the slam dunk that Apple or its investors were expecting for. However, I would agree that it took up a lot of airtime last time Apple introduced its iPhones, and I'm not convinced it was the appropriate move in hindsight. The iPhone 16 series may in principle be designed for the technology, and the boosts in built-in RAM that have gone out to most new Apple devices as a consequence are great, but in everyday usage, Apple Intelligence doesn't actually accomplish anything. The other large innovation I enjoyed was Apple's version of the Magic Eraser for images, although it's notably less effective than Google or Samsung's counterparts. I'd prefer Apple to take the attention elsewhere this year and just concentrate on genuinely enhancing the features it's brought out so that they don't just equal the competition, but transcend them. It isn't the most glamorous of arguments, but the truth is that battery life is a simply fundamental part of any phone user's list of priorities. If you change yearly, let alone bi-weekly, like many phone reviewers, you're likely sheltered from battery degeneration to a great degree. For the rest of us, meanwhile, as our phones age, we see their battery health tick down and become more and more of an issue on busy holiday days or when navigating. My iPhone 16 Pro's battery health is rated as normal after 396 charging cycles, but that's still seen it lose a whole 10% of its maximum charge, which is awful. I'm experiencing that 10% frequently. It's the difference between getting through a day in the red but still functioning, or being obliged to carry a battery around with me just in case. Any increase Apple can deliver with the iPhone 17 Pro would be enormous, but if it could update to newer silicon carbon batteries and gain a substantial benefit from that, it would seem like a true leap ahead. I don't change over to Android devices that frequently, but I've been getting hands-on with a few more recently, and one thing has continually stuck out. Their camera settings seem like they're a lot more brazen than Apple's. Don't get me wrong, the images my 15 Pro produces are fantastic, and I appreciate Apple's approach to color science, which is considerably more realistic than the saturated shots from Google's phones, for instance. However, one area where the iPhone plainly trails behind is on zoom. Samsung, Oppo, Honor, and others all have zoom capabilities that put Apple to shame. These are sometimes AI-assisted to brighten up fuzzy distant elements, but in many instances they work staggeringly well, and you can't come close to that on iPhone. The 17 Pro brought a new level of magnification at 5x optical, which does truly perform miracles and look amazing. But if Apple can take a large step further and make it at least 10x, it'll be beginning to really compete. Of course, it would still have a long way to go to catch up to its competition, but I believe it has to start communicating that it's making tracks. Lastly, all iPhone 17 models might incorporate the promotion technology, ultimately unlocking 120Hz variable refresh rates for all users. Currently confined to Pro models since 2021, the inclusion will enable iPhone 17 and 17 Air owners to experience better scrolling and transitions across iOS. Furthermore, the 4 screens might include a more scratch-resistant covering to better handle sharp objects. There have also been conflicting speculations of a smaller dynamic island on the iPhone 17 Pro Max, but it's uncertain whether it'll truly materialize. Smartphones have clearly evolved, and yearly upgrades have perhaps grown superfluous. Despite that, every once in a while, Apple manages to sneak in enough hardware increases in a single launch, encouraging people to upgrade. What's really fascinating about this year's speculated iPhone line is how there are stunning upgrades influencing every one of the 4 variants, not just the highest-end ones. While the vanilla iPhone 17 may be the least exciting, there's a lot to look forward to in the Air, Pro, and Pro Max editions. With the debut of the iPhone 16, Apple upgraded the regular versions to 8 gigs of RAM to enable on-device Apple Intelligence capabilities, matching the 8 gigs in the Pro models. To set its high-end phones distinct, Apple is believed to equip the iPhone 17 Pro and 17 Pro Max with 12 gigs of RAM, a 50% increase over the existing specifications. Beyond more sophisticated AI features, the update might make applications snappier and essentially eliminate latency throughout the system. With the iPhone 16e, Apple unveiled its first 5G processor, delivering equivalent performance with less energy. The first-party modem might find its way to the iPhone 17 Air later this year, which would increase its energy efficiency. Similarly, all iPhone 17 versions might include an Apple-made Wi-Fi chipset, perhaps boosting their battery life as we indicated previously. There's been a lot of movement recently surrounding software upgrades for iOS, the iPhone's mobile operating system. With the introduction of iOS 18.4, the Cupertino business took a huge leap forward with Apple Intelligence's artificial intelligence upgrades, and soon after, Apple launched iOS 18.4, one with technical improvements, bug fixes, and security updates. Apple is actively working on iOS 18.5, a software version currently in beta. In truth, it's just been a handful of days since the introduction of the third beta version of iOS 18.5. The next big iPhone software update won't have as many new features as iOS 18.4, which in addition to Apple Intelligence support for Spanish, also included new emojis and buttons for the Control Center, but iOS 18.5 will have a hidden feature that will be quite helpful. That stated, here's all we know about iOS 18.5 and its release date. With iOS 18.4, we knew for sure when the software upgrade would come since Apple had already mentioned that Apple Intelligence would be coming in Europe in April. However, with iOS 18.5, there are significantly fewer clues. But we can look at Apple's update cycle history from prior years to get a reasonable approximation of when iOS 18.5 will be officially available for all supported iPhone models. As you can see, all of these software upgrades were issued during the month of May, except for iOS 14.5, which came at the end of April. So everything appears to imply that iOS 18.5 will make its formal appearance the week of May 12th, or possibly a week later. We have direct access to all the newest information about the iPhone's X.5 upgrades, which will help us grasp the nature of its new features. Historically, these sorts of upgrades have offered tiny, extremely important enhancements, such as during the pandemic, when iOS 13.5 enabled a Face ID unlock option with a mask. For its part, iOS 16.5 featured external connections in reading applications and enhancements to Apple Pay Cash. Last year's iOS 17.5 release was arguably more important, with the introduction of sideloading allowing software downloads from other app stores. But what's most surprising is that practically all of the X.5 upgrades featured new iPhone backgrounds and Apple Watch faces to honor Pride Month. Meanwhile, iOS 18.5 provides new functionality for mail categories. There's an option to categorize emails by sender and another option to display or conceal contact photographs inside Apple's native email management software. Additionally, the Apple Care settings section provides an information panel to understand everything about your iPhone's warranty. We'll see whether Apple eventually provides new wallpapers. So that's all we know for now. We'll be sure to keep you updated as soon as we have more information. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.